Hi, my name is Jamie Knight, and I'm with Real Broker right here in Lafayette, Louisiana. Today I wanted to walk you through the Louisiana Residential Agreement to Buy or Sell. This is the main document that we use as realtors to help buyers buy and sellers sell. So this is the main document. So I wanted to make sure that you had a good understanding of what this document was and some of the particular high points in the document. That way you can have a better understanding of what you're getting into. So let's get started here. So on the top line here, you'll see property description. This will be the address of the property, and you'll also have the date. Both of these things are very important to have on every contract, obviously the purchase address and the date of the offer. So going through in the first section here, you'll see the listing firm and selling firm. That would be the brokers that represent each party in the transaction. The seller obviously being the listing firm, and the buyer obviously being represented by the selling firm. You would have all of the agent contact information right here, which would be the way that the title company might contact us in the transaction. So you'll see here in this section, this section here has the designated agent receiving the agreement. That would be if we submitted an offer for a buyer, they would have the opportunity to sign that offer in with the listing agent, and we would put their information right there. So the first section here also gives authorization to electronic signatures and communications through the email addresses that are provided. So for that authorization, we'd simply check the boxes right here, which authorizes us to use this kind of electronic communications. So the buyer's initial here and the seller's initial here, kind of on their own sides. The property description and the address and whatnot and the date appear on every page of the contract. So in the property description, you'll see the actual address, physical address of the property, which parish that the property is located in, and the legal description of the property. This would be lot blank of said subdivision, or if it'd be a large tract of land, it might say 20 acres in section this, that, or the other. So that the legal description will differ for every property, of course. And then here we would have kind of a physical size or a physical acreage here in this blank here. Now, all of what's included in the property, including everything that might be mounted, physically mounted to the property, would be what would stay with the property. And we detail it down to even including cabinets, countertops, anything that's included, window coverings, installed generators, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures. All of those things would, of course, remain with the property, with the sale. So any items that might be excluded from the property would have to go in this section here. So let's just say they wanted to reserve a bathroom mirror that was a family heirloom. They might put bathroom mirror reserved in guest bathroom. They might put that in this section on line 32. So moving down to line 38, we have kind of a mineral rights reservation here. If they are interested in transferring the mineral rights, someone might put 100% of the mineral rights owned by the seller or to be reserved by the seller. If they wanted to do a mineral reservation, they would have the 100% number right here. If not, if they wanted to convey them, they would put 0%. They would then convey the mineral rights to the potential buyer on the property. Line 44 is, of course, probably one of the most important parts of the contract, is what price are they offering with the property. So you'll see it typed out right here, and then you'll see it kind of plugged in price-wise here in the blank. Again, signatures will be on every single page of the contract. So moving down to page 3, active sale, which is another important part of the contract, of course, is when are we closing on the property? When are we actually looking to make a sale? That's an important date right there in lines 47 through 50. Occupancy, of course, will be at the date of sale. If not, it would have to be mutually agreed upon in writing. So we put the sale date here, and then the buyer would, of course, get occupancy on that sale date. So contingency for the sale of any other property, this would be as if a buyer of a particular property might have another home that they'd like to sell first. And if they did, they would put this sale is contingent upon the sale of that other property, and then they would have a separate addendum that would detail that contingency as well if they had another property that they would have to sell before they can make a purchase. So in line 58 is typically what we see is the sale is not contingent on the sale of any other property. So that would just be kind of a straight traditional sale. Financing, of course, in this section here, you can basically describe what type of financing that you'd like to have in the sale, whether it be an all-cash sale, finance sale. There are many different things that you can put in this section to be able to, basically detail to the seller what type of loan that you're going for. This also shows strength of the buyer in the sense of having a larger down payment, maybe in this section here, where you are trying to get maybe not quite the full loan amount for the property. You would put some details like that in this section. This also provides kind of a ceiling for you as well. You can put a ceiling of an interest rate. Let's just say 10% interest right now. Obviously you wouldn't want it to exceed a certain percentage. You could put that percentage right here, and that would protect a buyer in the sense of it being less than that percentage interest rate. So you'd also describe what type of loan you're going for: fixed rate mortgage, adjustable rate, FHA, VA, conventional type mortgage. You can put that there as well. And what you're doing with that is you're just basically telling the seller, hey, here's what type of loan I'm going for, and this is what I'm going to be applying for. So in this section here, other financing conditions, we're typically seeing if the buyer's asking for closing costs, that would be in this section right here. So we would have buyer requests $2,500 towards closing costs to be paid by the seller. Something like that would go in that section there. Obviously, you would have to apply for the loan within a certain amount of time. That date is basically inputted here, and that will essentially give you a few days to be able to actually make a formal application of the loan and submit that application of the loan to the seller or the seller's agent. So it's very important that we do that just so that we're staying in contract with those dates. So moving down here, prorations, you're basically going to be prorated the real estate taxes or any flood insurance premiums or condominium dues or whatever it may be, homeowners association dues. Basically what this is saying is that all things will be prorated at closing, so that the seller is kind of finished with the property essentially, and that you wouldn't, as the buyer, be looking to get any of those items back. Everything would be kind of fair. Taxes would be prorated, and everybody would have their portion taken care of at closing. So moving down here to the appraisal section. So in the appraisal, you would see more commonly on a finance sale that you would have a contingency of an appraisal. And if you did put it is conditioned on appraisal, then that would mean that the appraisal would have to at least be for the sales price of the property that has been agreed upon. And if it did not appraise for that sales price, then we would have to provide a seller with the copy within a certain amount of days, whatever we put here, and then we would kind of have to negotiate at that point if the sales price were less than the appraised value. Deposit. The deposit would be basically your good faith down payment that you're making within a certain amount of time. They're calling it 72 hours right here, and this would be deposited with typically it's a check or an electronic transfer, and it would be deposited either by the listing broker or the attorney typically. And if it were held by an attorney, this is where this next section comes in, where it says deposits held by a third party. So that's going to be probably your most common right now, because a lot of brokerages are not holding deposits. There are some brokerages who do hold deposits, and in that case that deposit would be made out to that brokerage and with a memo section of the property address. But typically what we're seeing a lot of right now is we're seeing a lot of the closing attorneys that we're hoping to have a successful closing with is already the one holding the deposit, and then that money would be given back to the buyer at closing. So the deposit is basically, it works essentially this way. I mean, if you perform the purchase agreement and you close on the property, you are 100% entitled to getting your deposit back, right? Now, if you or if you have your contract and you're abiding by your contract, it's not very likely that you would lose a deposit. Now, deposits or they're basically for the purpose of ensuring a sale. So, you have a certain amount of contingencies, and in this contract, we talked about a few already: financing contingency, appraisal contingency, the ability to have clear title. So you have a lot of contingencies. So assuming that you make a successful sale and you do not need to get out on any of those particular contingencies, then you would be obviously entitled to your deposit back if you got out of the contract within one of those contingencies. But let's move down a little bit further to leases on the property. This would be if there would be an investment type property, you would have to be in receipt of any leases on the property. Basically, property condition here too is you're acknowledging that the sales price of the property was negotiated based on the property's current condition. Now, that means you do have the right as well to do a home inspection or have some sort of a due diligence or an inspection period, which we would put that date here. You do have the right to inspect the property for any defects, and then you could potentially move forward with the knowledge of those defects, or you could also have asked the seller to give you a credit for maybe a large item, or possibly even repair that item that would be a deficiency. In this agreement, you've also has the sellers are required to provide utilities for that inspection period, kind of written into the contract right here. So how that typically works is within a few days, the date denoted above, you would have the opportunity to do any due diligence searching that you'd like to. That includes any of the major issues that may be happening with the house, any structural issues, pest inspections. You'd have the right to look at surveys and other things like flood zone statuses, past foundation damages, school districts, zoning issues. So all of those things would be, of course, optional, and you would want to make sure that you kind of have a good understanding of what you're getting into when you are purchasing a home. So it kind of talks about what could happen here when you could terminate the agreement potentially if you found something you didn't like. You could present a written list of the deficiencies to the buyer. You could to the seller, and you could also kind of basically request them to fix something or provide a credit for those fixes. So that's how that works, and that's a big major part of the process is just getting those inspections done and getting a knowledge of what's happening in that time frame, because that's probably the most common reason why people might back out of a sale, is if there would be a major defect or deficiency that wasn't disclosed that they would not feel comfortable with. So that's kind of a major item that you want to really get a professional home inspector that will do everything he can to come up with any deficiencies, to where even that way you're aware of those deficiencies to be able to know going forward and know if it's the right fit for your family. So moving down here to 255, you're seeing the private water and sewer. This would be as if there would be a septic tank at the property, a water well at the property. Those are some different things that might need additional inspections and disclosure, but we're seeing these two as a common deal because typically most properties are on a city water and a city sewer, so we're seeing these more commonly, but there are some of these different properties as we get into more of the rural areas where you'd have a septic system or you'd have a water well at the property. So a home service warranty. A home service warranty is basically an insurance policy that you can purchase on behalf of the home. You can ask or request that the seller may cover the cost of that, or you can cover the cost of that. It'd be your choice. Typically, those are between $700 and $800 right now, and that would insure some of the major fixtures in the home: plumbing, electrical, AC. There's different things that different policies cover. And you know, sometimes buyers do like that, to know that they could go a year and have it completely covered. If there'd be any deficiencies with the home, they would be covered in that home warranty. When we go down here to 281, the warranty of the property will typically be an as-is sale without warranties. This is the most common one unless you're buying a new construction home, and the new construction home would come within the new home warranties. So in this section below, it's basically stating that the seller will deliver a merchantable title. So in other words, a clean title at closing is required with this agreement. So this date here would have to do with the property. If it did not have clear title, we would extend the sale date by a certain number of days, put in this blank here, which would allow them to do any merchantable cleaning to the title and freeing up any liens or things that might cloud the title. So obviously, it's always our recommendation that a buyer would have a professional closing attorney that can examine the title to the property and make sure that they have 100% ownership to that property, and that there would be no other ownership or interest in the property, that you own it solely once you make the final closing. So the sale is also contingent upon a final walkthrough. That would give you the right to do a walkthrough to re-inspect the property within 5 days prior to the act of sale, which would give you kind of a making sure there was no major deficiencies or damages that had happened after the home inspection or whatnot. And I typically recommend doing this as well, just to make sure there's no damage to the home when they move furniture, or maybe there'd be a water leak that appeared kind of after a major rain or something like that. So we'd always want to kind of just do a final walkthrough just to confirm a couple things. So a little bit further down here, it talks about default of the agreement by the seller and how that would typically work, right? You know, we all go into the sale assuming both parties want to sell, but if one of the two parties does not want to perform on the contract, then there are some specific ways that would play out, and there are specific things that can be done, especially in Louisiana, to force somebody to sell and to abide by the contract. So you know, it's important to go into it assuming that you are willing and able and ready to either make a sale or make a purchase. So I always recommend people take this very seriously, because it's not so much just losing the deposit. There is some laws in Louisiana that would demand specific performance, which would essentially, by a court of law, force someone to be able to make right on a contract. So I always say go into it assuming that you would be ready to purchase the property or sell the property when you're signing off on one of these purchase agreements. So because buyers have costs and sellers have costs, and both of those are important, and we need to be respectful to other people's situations too. So there are some different important websites here that may be important to buyers, where there would be some mold-related hazards registered on the EPA's website. We're not seeing a whole lot of this, but sometimes there are some properties that are on here. And then, of course, like a sex offender notification section here, might have a website here that you can search and see where those people are relative to your property. Also, flood hazard information. Of course, one of the most common things we have here is flood zones and how those maps and whatnot affect the sale of the property. So that's important to kind of have an idea of that inside of the due diligence period that we have to make sure that you're comfortable with the flood status and the insurance that might come with. So yeah, so basically, you'll have the right to get a professional attorney as well if you feel more comfortable having someone explain it to you a little bit further in more details than what we've talked about here. So please feel free to look at that as well. And here time is of the essence. It's important for us to obviously present all offers within a certain amount of time. And additional terms and conditions, this would be really where the commissions are going these days. The buyer's agency's commissions right here is typically in here. Talks about roles of the broker and designated agents representing each particular party in the transaction. And that's kind of in this section. It goes over that a little bit further. This would be kind of some additional items that may be attached as a part of the agreement. Contingency of the sale of another property, private water sewer addendum that would give you some additional knowledge of a septic system that may be existing. So, essentially there we have some additional contractual language here that everything should be in writing, and that all the notices and the communications and whatnot shall be in writing, and it does give you some ability to use an e-signature, which is probably the most common thing that we have with that checkbox up there. So it is a legally binding contract, and I would encourage you to read it and ask any questions that you do have to your realtor who's representing you, to where you feel very comfortable with the contract. So the offers typically will have an expiration date, which will basically be good until the date specified right here in the contract, and that would just give an expiration of it. So buyers would select this date here, and they'd select their date and their time. They'd put their full legal name, and all appropriate buyers would be signing in this section right here. As you can see here in this line 445, the offer is accepted, rejected, or countered, and that would be right here as well. And the sellers, all appropriate sellers, would be in this section as well to sign. So that's a long explanation for it. Certainly, an attorney might be more willing to go into further depth on things, and look, we can break out more blanks and be a little bit more, dive in a little bit more to different items on that list, and we can definitely expand on anything that somebody might have questions about. But I feel like that's a pretty good explanation of the purchase agreement that you'll be signing at a potential offer point for a home. So if you have any questions about that, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help you navigate this document. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that my people had a good understanding of what that looked like. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me personally. And I appreciate you listening through, and I hope that you have a great day.